Turn over to Genesis, the 50th chapter, because this is what took place when Jacob died. 50 and verse number 7. Go ahead when you get there.
And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt.
Go ahead.
And all the house of Joseph, and his brethren, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen.
Go ahead. So they've left the land of Egypt and they're getting ready to go up and bury Jacob. Go ahead.
And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. He made a mourning for his father 7 days.
And what took place? Verse number 11.
And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad,
what did they say?
They said, "This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians."
Now what did they, who were the ones that were grieving? Was it not Israel? Right. But the people of the land, who did they mistake them for? For some Egyptians. Because again, why? They looked alike in appearance. He said, when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Go ahead.
Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond Jordan.
So again, you have a mistaken identity. And the only way that can take place is that the people must look alike in appearance. Turn over to Exodus, the 1st chapter. Because we're going to see what happened with Israel while they dwelt amongst the Egyptians. 1, and pick it up at verse number 6. 1 and 6. You go ahead when you get there. Because all that God has said must come to pass. Because he told Abraham concerning his seed, he said, know of a surety that your seed shall be in a strange and shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. And they shall afflict them for 400 years. Did he not? Right. He says, and that he was going to judge that nation and bring out Abraham's seed with great substance. 1 and 6. Go ahead.
And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty.
Go ahead.
And the land was filled with them.
When the Lord told Jacob, he told him, don't be afraid to go down in Egypt, because he's going to make a great nation of him. Did he not? And that's what took place. The Lord allowed Israel to prosper. He said the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. Go ahead, verse number 8.
Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people,
what?
Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
So they're concerned now again because Israel has increased in number. And what are they going to do? Go ahead.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them. Lest they multiply and it come to pass.
What?
That when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So evidently they had increased significantly enough in number that the ruler was concerned that if a war broke out, that Israel would side with the Egyptians' enemy. And they would overtake them. So they said, let's get them up out of the land. Verse number 11. And what did he do? Go ahead.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters.
To do what?
To afflict them with their burden. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities.
Go ahead.
Pithom and Ramesses.
So he enslaved them. He says, he set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. He said, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities. Pithom and Ramesses. Our people have always been building nations for other people. Right. It just didn't start here in America. Verse number 12, and go ahead.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew.
Because the Lord was with them. Go ahead.
And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
Go ahead.
They made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
Go ahead, verse number 15.
The king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women,
what?
And see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him.
But what if it's a daughter?
If it be a daughter, then she shall live.
So what they had set in motion, the Pharaoh set this plan. When the Israelite was going to give birth, if it's a son, then you kill him. But if it's a daughter, then you allow her to live. But go ahead, verse number 17.
But the midwives feared God, did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive.
So again, they risked their own well-being. Why? Because they feared God more than they feared man. Say the midwives, they feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but they saved the man children alive. Now turn over to the second exhibit. As I say, the Lord had told Abram, nor was sure that your seed was going to be in the land that is not there. They was going to be afflicted for over 400 years. And we're going to see you had one people of color enslave another people of color. And the Egyptian art shows that the Israelites were a people of color. They were a black people. Exhibit number 2, and it starts with the prefix from the Reader's Digest. Would you read that for me?
Prefix from the Reader's Digest, illustrated edition of the Holy Bible.
And these are where these images that we're going to look at came from. What I wanted to do is set the stage, what they said concerning this, what it was that their objective was in putting this Bible together. Because it had nothing to do, they're not really dealing with doctrine or anything. But go ahead, they'll explain it.
Never before have the finding of archaeology been linked so extensively with the scriptures as in the Reader's Digest illustrated edition of the Holy Bible.
Go ahead.
It contains more than 500 illustrations and captions that bring the background of history and the insights of archaeology to biblical narratives and themes.
Go ahead.
This edition became possible in 1961 when scholars completed a 6-year project of compiling and describing photographs of ancient artifacts, monuments, inscriptions, works of art, and archaeological sites to illustrate, that is, to set in a clear light, innumerable subjects in the Bible. With the vast material before them, the editors of the Reader's Digest have worked for many years to develop and publish the Reader's Digest illustrated edition of the Bible. Until the preparation of this book, illustrations for the Bible were usually drawn from an artist's imagination.
And mind you, their imagination did not coincide with truth or fact whatsoever. But what did they do? Those at the Reader's Digest. Go ahead.
More often than not from the imagery of an artist totally unfamiliar with the ancient Near East.
That's why you got Charleston Heston playing Moses. Don't have a clue of what was going on at that time. Who the people truly were at that time. Who were the Egyptians? Who were the Israelites? Everybody want to make God in their image. God walked this earth as a flesh and blood man. But Jesus was what? Was he not born from the tribe of Judah? Was he not a Hebrew Israelite? He could have been mistaken for an Egyptian. Why? Because he looked just like them. He was a black man. He was a man of color that had nothing to do with anything. It's just God chose a people. And it was our people that he chose. And he chose them for a reason. And we're going to deal with that. But go ahead.
More often than not, from the imagery of an artist totally unfamiliar with the ancient Near East. Although reverent and beautiful as expressions of faith, these paintings and drawings have frequently given an inaccurate picture of the biblical work.
Just like we have an inadequate and inaccurate history. We have black, they give us a month. A month. Never get past us coming to the shores of America as slaves. And they will deal with, they say, well, you came from Africa. That's a big continent. Where did we come from in Africa? Don't know. Don't have a clue. It's like we just dropped off the face of the earth and dropped into slavery. No, it's all recorded right here in the Bible. All we got to do is open it up and read it. The Lord is a merciful God. Our ancestors sinned against God. He sent them into slavery all over the world. But then what he did not rely on, he did not rely on the captors recording our history. He recorded it for us. So that when we come into some understanding, we'll know where we've been, but more importantly, where we are headed. If we do what the Lord told Abraham, it's all contingent upon being obedient. He said, if you walk before me, Abraham, and be thou perfect. And when we understand that as a people, then and only then will we gain our deliverance. And people will say, how could you talk about you don't have your deliverance? Nobody has enslaved you anymore. You're not a slave. You're part of the melting pot of America. Look here. My people were brought here as slaves, and I have remained here. Never went back home. Did not know I even had a home. Because where does a Negro come from? Where does a black man come from? Where does a color come from? I remember growing up, used to change our name so much. It went from, on my birth certificate, I was a Negro, but they were still calling people colored. And then they went to black, you know, the Black Power movement. And then they went to what I call the Afro-Americans. Americans that was walking around with nappy hair, with afros. And then they said, no, we're gonna call you an African American. Name another people that's named after 2 continents. Name one. Everybody knows where they come from. But you got a people that's walking around and ain't got a clue. But the Bible said that would be the case. You read in Deuteronomy, he said, I'm going to make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. After he ships them into slavery all over the world. Hey, but one people that fit that bill, and that is a black people that find themselves on the bottom wherever they are. That's our history. That's our true history. But go ahead.
Now, the archaeological photographs in the Reader's Digest Illustrated edition of the Holy Bible show what much of that world was like.
And what was the world looking like? They weren't they weren't dealing with doctrine. They're just trying to show a true depiction of what the people looked like that occupied that land. And if you look at the first caption, the first picture, this is from the Reader's Digest Holy Bible. Again, they were trying to depict and show a more accurate description of the people of the Bible. And they show clearly that Israel is a people of color. This first one, you have a young man, and it has like a he has like a cow. It says, if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offering, if he offered it of the herd, whether it be male or female, he shall offer it without blemish before the Lord. Read right down where it says at the bottom of that paragraph, throughout the ancient East.
The last full sentence. Throughout the ancient East, oxen were most frequently used for sacrifice, as in the picture at the left, a wall painting from the tomb of Amenemhet at Thebes of 15th century BC.
And wasn't that not a part of our ancestors' form of worship, making sacrifices unto God? But look at this one, and this is a picture that shows on some of the tombs, and you would have to get You could see it on a computer, and they would show you in 3D some of the images that on the walls of some of these Pharaoh tombs, and it's remarkable. But it shows people of color. And this particular one here is showing, this is showing Israel. It's depicting how they were making bricks of straw. This is a black people that was enslaved by the Egyptians, and they showed it in their artwork. Go ahead and read that. Where it said one of the back-breaking tasks of the Israelites.
One of the back-breaking tasks of the Israelites in bondage was the making of bricks. In the upper panel of a painting from the tomb of Rekemir of Tibis. Because
above it, it says, I don't know if it has it on y'all, but above it, the caption, and I didn't record it on y'all. In the book, it says, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick. That was in Exodus 1:14. We read that. And so this picture is depicting the life of a Hebrew Israelite slave. Go ahead.
Workmen rebuild according to an inscription the workshops of the god Ammon at Karnak. At the left, water is being drawn to moisten the clay. Next, it is kneaded and then center, carried to 2 men who are making bricks and molds. Finally, the bricks are put out to dry, top left. And in the lower panel, a temple is being constructed of the new bricks.
And who are these that are enslaved? But are they not people of color? Turn, flip right over. And you have, it seems like you have fruit, and you have some, you have 4, looks like men that are here in this painting. And what does it say concerning this one? A wall painting.
A wall painting from the tomb of Nakht, a dignitary in the 15th century, depicts the elegancy and variety of Egyptian food. Adorned with flowers, the fare included poultry, fish, fruit, vegetables, and seasoning.
And it's not about the food, but it's about the people. Again, it's showing you that these are people of color. And the last one, it shows you a picture of what they call Nubians. It says, midway down, it says, the wall painting in the tomb of Prince Tutankhamun's victory at Nubia shows 4 men who were part of the entourage of a Nubian princess. Again, Nubians were black people who once occupied part of Egypt. They also reigned as pharaohs. These were all black people. Israel is a black people. They are a people of color. Turn over to Exodus, the 2nd chapter. It's not a racial thing. It's fact. It's history. Exodus 2. We're going to see another example of how that the Egyptians and the Israelites were alike in appearance. We're going to see what happened with Moses, because Pharaoh had issued a decree to the midwives when a son was born, what was supposed to take place? They were supposed to kill him. But if it was a daughter, you let him live. We're going to see what took place with Moses. You go here when you get there. 2 and verse number 1.
And there went a man of the house of Levi and took a wife, a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
Now, this is none other than Moses. Moses was a Hebrew Israelite born of the tribe of Levi. He said, when a man of the house of Levi took to wife a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months, because she did not want him to be killed. But go ahead.
And when she could no longer hide him,
what did she do?
She took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch. And put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink.
Go ahead.
And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him.
Go ahead.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept.
And she's going to have compassion on this young Hebrew child. Go ahead.
And behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children.
This is a male child, though. This is a Hebrew Israelite. And Pharaoh's daughter has found Moses. Go ahead, drop down to verse number 10 and says she has compassion on him. And I keep calling him Moses because you know the story. She's going to name him Moses. But the fact is, he's a Hebrew Israelite who was supposed to be, according to the king's decree, put to death. But Pharaoh's daughter had compassion on him. Go ahead.
And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
I tell you what, pick it up at verse number 9.
And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me. And I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it.
Because what had took place was the maid went and got the child's mother, and Pharaoh's daughter had her to nurse her son. He said the woman took the child. He said, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I'm going to give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. Go ahead. And who did this child grow up to be?
The child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter. And he became her son, and she called his name Moses.
Go ahead.
And she said, because I drew him out of the water.
Drop down to verse number 5. I'll tell you what, just keep reading. We got a little time. Go ahead.
Verse 11. And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting in Hebrew, one of his brothers.
Now mind you, Moses has been brought up in Pharaoh's house. If Moses looked completely different, if the Israelites looked completely different from the Egyptians, then that would have drawn some attention. Pharaoh would have said, what's this boy? But since they looked alike, he ain't paid it no mind. Now Moses then grew up to become a man, but he never did forget who he was. He is a Hebrew Israelite, but he had been brought up in the household of Pharaoh. He said it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, he went out into his brethren and looked on their burdens. He spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. Verse number 12, what did he do?
And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
And it tells you Moses was one of the most meekest men on the earth. Was it not? But Moses thought about this. He looked one way. He looked another way. And when he saw there was no man looking, he killed the Egyptian. And he hid him in the sand. So Moses gave stock or thought to what it was that he was doing before he went about. 13, and go ahead.
And when he went out the second day, behold, two men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong,
what?
Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow?
Go ahead.
And he said, who made thee a prince and a ruler?
So now Israel's out there the next day, they clowning. And Moses intervened. And Israel then told him, he said, he went out the second day, and two men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to the one that did the wrong, why are you doing this? And what did he tell Moses? He said, who did make thee a prince or a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me like you killed that Egyptian? Go ahead. What did Moses do?
And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known.
Now, Moses had sought to help his own, and his own did what? Turn around and bit him. Go ahead. That's our history too.
Yes.
When you deal with it, you got to deal with all of it. See, it's one thing, ain't nothing wrong with having pride. But you got to have pride in the right thing. A lot of times people find out they Israel, and their chest, for some reason, get puffed up. Ain't nothing special about being Israel. Only thing special about being Israel is what God commissioned Israel to do. If it was special in just being Israel, we wouldn't be in the condition we are in. Not knowing who we are, where we came from. That would have never taken place. God would have never allowed that to take place. So what's special about us is what was given for us to do. But they had Moses again. He's seeking to help his own, and they didn't turn on him. Verse number 15. Go ahead.
Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses.
Go ahead.
But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
Go ahead.
And the shepherds came and drove them away.
But now Moses is going to intervene again on their behalf. Go ahead and look what takes place.
But Moses stood up and helped them and watered the flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today?
What they tell him?
And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
Moses ain't no Egyptian. I don't care the fact that Pharaoh, he grew up in Pharaoh's house. He is a Hebrew Israelite. But what did they mistake him for? As an Egyptian. Because they both looked alike. People of color. Black people. He said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds. Go ahead.
And also drew water enough for us and watered the flock.
Turn over to Matthew, the 2nd chapter. We're going to see that there were similarities between Moses and Jesus. Moses hid in Pharaoh's house. Jesus is going to hide in the land of Pharaoh. He's going to hide from the one who was seeking to kill him. Matthew 2, and pick it up at verse number 1. Because the Lord is going to have Joseph to take Jesus down in the land of Egypt, to hide him from Herod, who's seeking to kill him. 2 and 1. You go ahead when you get there.
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king.
Go ahead.
Behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem.
Go ahead.
Saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews?
Because Jesus was the Hebrew Israelite, born of the tribe of Judah. It says he was born in Bethlehem of Judea, a town in Judah. He said during the days of Herod the king, and wise men came from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Because Jesus was to be, he became the Messiah. He was anointed the Messiah. The Messiah was going to deliver his people Israel. He was going to reign over them. They didn't understand fully. Jesus wasn't going to just reign over the house of Israel. He's going to rule over this whole world. He said, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Go ahead.
For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him.
Pick it up at verse number 5. Go ahead.
And they said unto him in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet.
Because Herod had wanted to know. He heard these things and he was troubled. He wanted to know where the Christ was supposed to be born. And they told him in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophets. Go ahead.
And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah. Out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Pick
it up at verse number 8. And what did Herod do? Go ahead.
And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the child. And when ye
go ahead.
And when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also.
So he get called for the wise men. And he had sent them to Bethlehem and told them, you go and you search diligently for the young child. And when you found him, you bring me word again. You let me know. Because I want to come and I want to worship him also. But see, Herod was the ruler of the Jews, or Israel. Because Israel was a province of Rome. Rome was running things. And Herod had set Herod up as being charged of Jerusalem. He didn't want to worship Jesus. He wanted to kill him. But drop down to verse number 10 and what took place.
When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his Magdalene, his mother, And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh.
Go ahead.
And being word of God in a dream that they should not return to Herod,
but instead do what?
They departed into their own country another way. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream.
So they didn't go and tell Herod the information that he was seeking.
Right.
But go ahead.
Saying, arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
So the Lord, it said, after the wise man had departed, it said the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, telling him, you arise and take the child and his mother, and do what? You flee into Egypt, and you be there until I bring thee word, because Herod is going to seek the young child to destroy him. So he was to take Jesus down into Egypt, and they were to remain there. They're going to hide out there, again, because Herod is seeking to kill him. But the only reason they went down into Egypt, why? Because they could blend in. He's not going to set him in a place where he would stand out like a sore thumb. He's going to send him into a place where they look like the people that are around them. Just like Moses would be mistaken for an Egyptian. Joseph and his family would be mistaken. But they would just look just like the Egyptians. They would not stand out. But if Joseph and Mary and Jesus were white, and they went down into Egypt among them black people, somebody would say, hey, it's some strangers down here. This might be the one you're looking for. Because they would look entirely different. Entirely different. It's no different sometimes when you look at the Discovery Channel on National Geographic, where I used to, and you would see some of us in some of the strangest places. They say, man, how did they get there? Because they just stand out like a sore thumb. I forgot the program I was looking at, but these were Dutch or Danish, and they had some blacks in the choir singing. We everywhere. Matters not where we are there. But it looks so strange because it seems so out of place. Well, in the case with Jesus, he wasn't going to be out of place. Because there was some black family that was going to sojourn among other blacks. But turn over to Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Go back to Exodus, the 3rd chapter. And Jesus was able to hide down there in Egypt. His family did, until Herod had died. Turn to Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Because now Israel has been in bondage and the Lord is getting ready to deliver them. Exodus 3, and pick it up at verse number 1. He's getting ready to reveal himself unto Moses. 3 and 1. You go ahead when you get there.
Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush.
Go ahead.
And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
And I always say God will often show you examples of things that he's talking about. Because when you talk about, you tell people about the lake of fire, and they say, will God burn you forever? How can you burn forever? Well, he's showing you right here. It said the angel of the Lord appeared unto Moses in the flame of a fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. So you could burn for all of eternity and never be, as they say, burn up. You'll never be consumed. You'll just be a continuous, what does the Lord say in Mark the 9th chapter? Everlasting fire. But go ahead, verse number 3.
And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, while the bush is not burnt.
Because the bush is burning, but it never burned up. Go ahead.
And when the Lord saw that, he turned aside to see.
Because the Lord now had Moses' attention, and he's going to speak to him. Go ahead.
God called unto him out of the midst of the bush. Said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I.
Go ahead.
And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet. For the place whereon thou standest is holy ground.
Go ahead.
Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Again, he made himself known unto Moses, and he told him what? He said, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, because the covenant began with Abraham, and it passed down to Isaac, and from Isaac it passed down unto Jacob. And the Lord now is getting ready to deliver Abraham's seed. He's getting ready to deliver Israel. He said, and Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Verse number 7, go ahead.
And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters.
Go ahead.
For I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the land of Egypt.
And to do what?
And to bring them up out of that land unto a good land and a large, into a land flowing with milk and honey.
A fertile land. Go ahead.
And unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
So the Lord is going to take the land that Ham descendants owned and occupied, the land of Canaan, and he's going to give it unto Israel. He said, I've surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt. I've heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, and I know their sorrows. The Lord had told Abram that he was going to bring his seed out. They were going to be a stranger in a land that was not theirs, and they were going to be afflicted. And he was going to bring them out with great substance. You can read when Israel left, when he brought them out, he allowed them to spoil the Egyptians. They took from them golds and jewels when they came up out of the land of Egypt. But go right into the 12th verse of Exodus. 12th chapter, thank you. Because what took place, the Lord sent Moses to Pharaoh, tell him to let his people go, and Pharaoh refused. So the Lord plagued the Egyptians and plagued them until they finally let his people go. We're going to find out, though, how long was Israel in the land of Egypt. 12 and verse number 4. You go ahead when you get there.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years.
Was that not what the Lord said it was going to be? Go ahead.
And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
And this roughly was 630 years after the Lord had told Abram that this was going to take place. Turn over to Exodus the 19th chapter. Because he brought Israel into the wilderness, and we're going to see why the Lord brought them unto himself. 19 and verse number 1. Because you often hear that Israel is God's chosen people, but people never talk about what they were chosen for. We're going to find out. 19 and verse number 1, because I always say, you're not special because you're Israel. Makes Israel special is what was given unto them by God. What it was that they were commissioned to do. 19 and 1, and go ahead.
In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai.
Go ahead.
And they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mountain. So the Lord had delivered his people like he said he was going to do. He's brought them into the wilderness, and he's preparing them to take them into the promised land. But go ahead. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying,
What?
Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel.
Now, the book will tell you that God, when he spoke to other prophets, he would speak to them in a vision and in a dream. But Moses, he spoke to face like a man speaking to another man. But understand, those prophets, they were Israelites. Moses is an Israelite. God revealed himself to the world through our forefathers. And he chose us as a people. We're going to see. Keep reading.
Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself.
Now what?
Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed.
It's always contingent upon being obedient unto God to receive God's favor. He said, now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, he said, all that I speak, we can't be partial in what it is that we want to pay heed to, what it is that we want to obey. He said, now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and do what?
And keep my covenant.
In other words, we have to do like the Lord told Abraham, you got to walk before me and be perfect. Be obedient unto me. Keep my commandments, my laws, and my statutes. He said, now therefore, if you obey, but he proposing this to the nation at this time. He said, now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then what are you going to be?
Then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people.
Then you'll be special unto me, Israel. If you are obedient unto me. He said, you're going to be a peculiar treasure. You're going to be special unto me above all people. He said, for all the earth is mine. Verse number 6, what were we supposed to be? Go ahead.
And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel.
He said, you're going to be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. He said, these are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. This is the proposal that God had made to our forefathers. He said you were supposed to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. We were supposed to teach the rest of the sons of Adam how to serve the true and living God. Because in being obedient unto God, we would prosper as a nation. And then other people would come to us and look and say, what is it about your God that has allowed you to prosper? So it's no different. When you look at a person who seems to be doing well, pricks your curiosity. You want to know, what is it about this individual? How did he get this money? How did he get this house? How did he get the things that he has? Would have been no different. If we had been obedient unto God as a people, he was going to take us into the promised land, and we were going to prosper there. And all the world would look to Israel, and they would direct them to God. We were supposed to show the rest of the sons of Adam how to serve and worship the true and living God. That's why God chose us as a people. That's what we were chosen for. God's chosen people were chosen to do what? To be a kingdom of priests. Not just to preach the word, but to live the word. Not just to tell somebody what thus say the Lord, but to show them by example. If somebody would have asked about God, everybody in the nation would be able to give an answer. Peter said, always be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have in Christ Jesus. Always be ready to give an answer for the salvation that you believe in and the salvation that you seek. And why you will be able to do that again, all was given unto Israel. Everything was given to us as a people. What this world knows about God, and I say the little bit they know, because nobody reads the book and believes it. Everything that was written in this book was written by our people. It was written by Israel. It was given unto Israel. The understanding of what is in here was given unto Israel. It was given unto God's people. That's a part of our history. But we terribly neglected our responsibility. That's a part of our history too. That's why we're living in the condition that we're in. But it says that you're going to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Verse number 7. Go ahead.
And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him.
And what did we say?
And all the people answered together and said,
on one accord. Go ahead.
all that the Lord hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord.
They professed to believe. They proclaimed that they were going to do all that the Lord has spoken. But turn over to Psalms 149. I'm sorry, Psalms 147. Thank you. Because we're supposed to be a holy nation, a kingdom of priests. Again, we're going to teach the rest of the sons of Adam about the true and living God. The Lord made Israel his priest. And David lets us know he didn't give that responsibility to another people. He didn't give that to anybody else. He said, if you obey my voice, all that I speak, you should be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. 147. And pick it up at verse number 19. 147, 19. What did David say the Lord did concerning his people? Go ahead.
He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel.
Again, he gave all of it. He gave it unto Israel, and to Israel alone. He tells you in Amos, of all the families of the earth, only you have I known. So I'm going to punish you for all your iniquity. He said he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. What about the other people? Go ahead.
He hath not dealt so with any nation.
Is it because he does not care about them? No. With God, there's a protocol. Yes. God gave his word to Israel, and Israel's job is to teach the rest of the sons of Adam about the true and living God. And that is how it was going to be. When the centurion was praying unto the Lord, and the Lord was merciful unto him, he sent an angel to him. But what did the angel tell him? Did he tell him what it is that he could have done? No. He said, you go and you call for one Simon Peter. He's going to show you what you need to do. He said he's not dealt so with any nation. Go ahead.
And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord.
Turn over to Romans, the 9th chapter. Paul's going to reiterate the fact that Israel, unto them was given everything. Tell you what, turn to Romans, the 3rd chapter. We'll go to 9 after this. He's going to confirm here what David is saying. 3 and verse number 1. You go ahead when you get there. Romans 3 and 1. What does it say?
What advantage then hath the Jew? What profit is there of circumcision?
Go ahead.
Much every way chiefly, because that unto them were committed the oracles of God.
He said, look here, what advantage is that of being Israel? Or what profit is there of circumcision? He said, much every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the words of God. Everything was given unto Israel. Turn to Romans, the 9th chapter. 9 and 1. If we only understood who we are and what our purpose is for, the whole world would be much better. Not only would we benefit as a people, the whole world would benefit. But now, everybody's suffering. 9 and verse number 1. Go ahead when you get there.
I say the truth in Christ, I lie not. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Holy Ghost.
What?
And I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart.
Paul said, look, I'm filled with grief. Go ahead.
For I could wish that myself were cursed from Christ, my brother and my kinsmen according to the flesh.
Again, he was a Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin. And he said he wished himself were banned from Christ. He said, for his brethren's sake. It's just like Moses told the Lord, look, if you don't forgive them, Lord, then blot me out of that book of life, out of your book of life. Paul said, look, I wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brother and my kinsmen, according to the flesh. He was a Hebrew Israelite. Go ahead.
Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of God, and the promises. Again,
everything that was given unto, that God gave unto man was given unto Israel. People talk about they under the new covenant. What was that made with? It was made with Israel. He said, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law. Again, our whole purpose, we were supposed to teach the rest of the sons of Adam about the true and living God. The service of God and the promises was all made unto Israel, including the ultimate promise, and that's eternal life. What did he tell? Did he not tell Abraham he was going to give him the land of Canaan? He said, for an everlasting possession. The only way you can hold on to something forever is if you live forever. But go ahead, verse number 5.
Whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came.
Jesus was an Israelite. Go ahead.
Who is over all, God blessed forever. Amen.
Turn over to John, the 4th chapter. Because as I said, we've made great contributions to society, but the greatest contribution that we are to make is yet to be realized. 4, in verse number 19. And Jesus is going to let us know why it's so important for people to understand who Israel is. 4, and pick it up at verse number 19. This is Jesus talking to the Samaritan woman, the woman at the well. What is he going to tell her? Go ahead. 4:19.
The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet.
Because he had told her about some things that was taking place in her life. About the fact that she had been married. And that the man she was with now is not her husband. The woman told her. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Because otherwise, how would he have known these things? Go ahead.
Our fathers worshipped in this mountain. And ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship.
What did Jesus tell her? Go ahead.
Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me. The hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father.
Go ahead.
Ye worship ye know not what.
And that applies to the world as a whole today. They're worshiping God, they're worshiping Jesus, but they're not worshiping him with any understanding. He said, ye worship ye know not what. But what?
We know what we worship.
Why?
For salvation is of the Jews.
Because God gave his word to Israel and Israel alone. And it is Israel's responsibility to teach the rest of the sons of Adam about the true and living God and how to get salvation. That's a part of our history. That is who we are as a people. And we're going to continue because the Lord has brought our forefathers into the wilderness, and we're going to pick it up next week there and see how the story unfolds. And that's Black history is told by the Bible, the beginning of Israel as a people. I want to thank you for your time.